thinking about sports and all that we like about it, watching those scoreboards. What if we could get more out of it? What if it's not just a game? It could be a business. It could be a way of life. It could be a game changer. Something that could change our way of life and our quality of life. What we have this evening is Mr. John-Marc Nutt and Mr. Renaldo Dorsett, out of 10-year seniors who will be joining us shortly in order to walk us through how we could get off this little rock in our mind to the big yard where we control how things work.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. What we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative, 242.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And this evening we have, as I mentioned, Mr. John Nutt and Renaldo Dorsett. Them two fellas on the screen there, you see with the big 10-year seniors logo in the middle, and my favorite basketball player right now, Buddy. I guess that's an older one when he's in college.
Yeah, college jersey.
I know which one that is. I'm trying to figure out who that is in the back of you, Ronaldo. My eyes ain't that good.
Yeah, that's Jazz when he was initially with the Marlins before he changed the number. So that was right out of spring training when he was wearing number 70.
Ah, okay. I forget he used to wear 70. Anyway, it's a long time. My baseball days was in as prosperous as his or plenty of these young guys today. And so what we want to talk about today is how we could get from what helped me and people like me to become successful in life through sports, but we could raise the game to something that we could really maximize what we really should be doing almost 30, 40 years later compared to when we were struggling with playing on C.I. Gibson Yard and had to move about 50,000 pieces of rock off the field in order so you could slide without going home at 6 Strawberry kind of thing. So, gents, give us a little bit about who you are and what 10-year seniors is about.
All right, so I'll take this one first. Like you mentioned, I'm Ronaldo in the duo. So 10th year seniors started. So I would guess the most basic way to put it is we are children of the sports digital age. For us, the way we always consume sports, ESPN was our first love. And so when we came back from school, we thought, how could we get the way sports was presented to us, the way we found it more palatable? How could we bring that to a Bahamian audience? And we found that in the digital space, it really wasn't being maximized. And so we thought this was a lane that we could get into and that we could do independently. When I first started, I started working in the newspaper industry. My dream coming up was you work in newspapers, you try to get a column, and then you try to get a radio show. Well, with the internet, that model all changed. So there was no barrier for entry anymore. You didn't need to go that route. And we thought we would just do this independently. So for us, it was all digital, all trying to serve a younger market. And that's who we targeted at first. And that's really how we built our popularity locally.
Well, I hope the people out there listening good, because, that right there is powerful. You all didn't wait for the amount
we didn't.
To you.
We didn't ask for permission. It seems like it was one of those things that we decided to just say, hey, because I have a camera, let's just go and do this. And pretty much you start a YouTube channel. It's a lot of bumps and bruises that you get trying to do something like this back home, because even to this day, it's funny that people don't believe in what you're doing to a point. But I know we'll get into more detail about how sports is a billion-dollar industry worldwide. So,
right.
So I'll give you a kind of an interesting story about when we first started, and we were just having casual conversations about it. But there was one thing that I noticed. So I did some work in the recruiting department when I was in college, and I noticed how they did it then. But when I came home, I would have these basketball players and these different athletes. They would come to the newspaper asking for clippings. And I thought, this isn't the way this is done anymore. We're still playing the game 8-10 years behind. We got to have something visual. So like John mentioned, he had the equipment. We were like-minded individuals, and we just started going out to games, started getting footage, because when we were in high school, the only game that came on TV was the Hugh Campbell Championship. That was the one high school basketball game you could watch. And we thought, we have to change this. It's not going to come on national TV. We can't rely on any of the networks to do it. So we just went out there, used the internet, started doing it, and the rest has been history.
That's cool, man. That's very cool. But on this show, we about trying to build this new built environment where what we call to be sustainable, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But first and foremost, I wanted to highlight this quote that I thought about when we were putting the show together, when you say, "When hard truths feel like bad manners, we trade excellence for mere survival. But bold minds, brave voices, and builders ignite real prosperity." What does that tickle of your fancy?
I mean, it's not an easy thing. Like, we live in a country where the old guard and protocol is always supposed to be the most important thing. Well, we always were like, we don't know what the protocol is in media because we don't have a protocol in media per se. We don't have, like, when you go to the US, these broadcasting deals and all of that stuff. So we just made it up on the fly, and you just have to hope that what you do, people are going to accept it and be like, you know what, we were missing it. And like, we have a now story with the Tribune. We didn't do a BAISS live stream this year, and it seemed like the whole country was
in uproar.
Exactly. And for us to take, like you say, you have to build something, you have to survive, you have to, you look at the quote, you have to be able to show the value and the worth that you built and be bold, and in order for people to know, hey, this is pretty important. A flash in the pan where we got so used to it that when it was gone, now we finally say, hey, okay, we need it.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
When I hear that, the first thing I think of, and I think this is on the macro level, this is kind of the umbrella with everything we talk about is going to come underneath this, right? My first thought when I heard that is, we still look at sports recreationally in the country.
Good.
And until that culture shift changes to looking at it as big business and moving as big business, then we're going to have problems in every aspect. We're going to have problems in development. We're going to have problems in presentation. We're going to have problems in media, because at the very top level, if we're not seeing it for what it could be, then how could anyone else realize that? And so for me, I always I have mixed emotions when I see foreigners come in and they get it and they understand. Right. They understand how sports is big business and how you can use this destination as that. And they do a great job of it, and we facilitate that. But I think we're leaving so much on the table because we don't do a lot of it ourselves. And it's because we either don't realize or we don't have the capacity to really take on the big business that sports is.
Well, I don't think it's that we don't have the capacity. I think it's a matter of exposure and experience. But, we're growing in leaps and bounds on the professional arena, and there's tentacles beyond just the athlete that goes into the whole sports business. And like when I talked to Michael Armagon, and he was on the show, and we were talking about the esports, and he was citing how, that is like a couple $1 billion industry, and we had people making like a couple $1 million just for their electronic sports. But the ecosystem that he mentioned, where everybody could get involved digitally, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, a trainer, agent, whatever it is, everything in regular sports you could have in esports. And so I'm just thinking that, okay, so in the Bahamas, all those things that goes into professional sports, we could have Bahamians doing all of those different things. And I believe we do have some doing some of them, like a coach like Coach Yo and rest. But beyond that, like whether the trainers or physiotherapists or, whatever part of the business there is. So from your experience, where do you see it walking right now?
So where I think we are, there's still so much of it that we, like I said, that we leave on the table. The people that you mentioned, like you mentioned Coach Yo, and we look at all of the NBA players and we look at all of the baseball players, so much of them still have to leave here to become what they are.
Right.
So we're still not really facilitating that development. We are to a certain extent, but so much of it still has to happen someplace else. But I think we're just stopping at the athletic level. I don't think we're getting internationally in terms of the business aspect of it, in terms of representation, in terms of hosting, in terms of youth development. I still think we're leaving so much on the table with that because we're not taking a holistic approach to the business of sports. It's just, we can look and see, okay, Buddy Hield's doing his thing, DeAndre Ayton's doing his thing, Devin Charlton's doing her thing. And when they come home, we celebrate that, we have a good time. But what are we really doing in terms of creating business out of that? And I'm not even talking about something as simplistic as putting someone on a billboard, although we rarely do that. We don't really support our athletes financially or make them as big a part of a culture as we should.
Only when they're winning.
Only when they win. But even then, I mean, if we ride from the airport right now, we always tell the story about when we went to Jamaica and you could not leave the airport without seeing billboards from whatever company they have, Grace and all of the others with their athletes. You drive from LPIA, which Bahamian athlete are you seeing down JFK?
You might see Ronaldo in an advertisement. Like that, we make fun of that because he's in more advertisements than our gold medal winners. Like,
yeah, we have what we call these wall of fames and stuff, right? We build a thing in the airport where you come into what's that, immigration? Yeah, immigration. Yeah. You get a couple of people there, then they build. There wasn't enough wall there, so they decided to do a walk of fame, a sports center. But it's all about glitz and glamour, right? Okay, who we could promote like that, but like I say, I don't think it's that we have enough people who have been exposed to the inner workings of the sports.
But I'll take it where Ronaldo went off, where he's talking about athletes. It's also, and I know you touched on it with coaching, administration jobs, coaching jobs. There are things outside of the sport of actually playing the sport that people could get into. Like, I'm on the executive board for the Bahamas Basketball Federation, and I've been lucky enough to be able to see the inner workings of how FIBA, the international body for basketball, works, be able to go to some of the workshops, some of the congresses, talk to other federations and see what problems they have. And most of the time it's always money. Government support money is always the time. It's only the big people who have the corporate sponsors, USA, Canada, the European countries that have all the money. But I could tell you within basketball, though, I feel we have done a pretty good job of cultivating our own coaches who are going to soon be ready to get to the national team level. We've had, so Chris DeMarco came on board in 2019 to be, he was a development coach for the Golden State Warriors, ended up becoming an assistant coach. Then we had Nashad was a coach this last win, like 2-3 winters ago.
Nashad Maki.
Yeah, ends up getting a promotion at his college. Mikhail McLean, a part of the program, ends up getting the job at Kentucky. Willis Mackey, he was actually supposed to be on the team, got hurt, and transitioned from there into coaching because we are now able to pick the brains of the professionals in the U.S. to be able, and this is for national team, be able to then translate that knowledge to the other people. And now we have 4 or 5 Division I coaches in basketball. So I would say within the next 5 to 6 years, not even saying 10, 4 to 6 years, you are probably going to see a Bahamian coaching staff at the national team level where every single coach is going to be Bahamian. I know track and field has a lot of coaches as well. But it's just the building blocks of just saying you don't have to be a professional athlete, but you could still be in the sport.
And there are other people like Ethan Bain, who works in the front office of the Chicago White Sox in data analytics. And you have so many people that get into the strength and conditioning field. I know you have Brian Clark at Stetson. There are tons of Bahamians that do it at a high level. I know Ian Myers was in the Yankees organization for a while doing these things outside of playing on the field. But to me, all of the people that we mentioned, all of them are doing these things in the US. And I think there's a disconnect with that and what happens here. And if you talk to a lot of the people, I think there's somewhat of a generational divide as well that I think hampers us, because you have one generation that I would say still looks at it recreationally, and there is, what's the most politically correct way to say this, right? I think they kind of
just say it.
Yeah, I think they kind of frown down upon the younger generation that sees things as big business, and they don't appreciate the fact that, hey, it takes money to run these things, and it takes somebody demanding a certain salary if you want a certain product. So when the standard of everything is raised, I think we also have to take things into account. Like, it's not back in the day where you could have, okay, one great benefactor that runs a company and he's going to sponsor a sports team and that'll be enough. It's not like that anymore. The model for everything changed. I just don't know if we as a society has changed along with that.
Well, you know, the key is getting our people out there and getting in the system and working, and then everything is going to fall back into play. And it mightn't take as long as we think, because the way things move, it moves exponentially, particularly as we move more into the digital world. Progress happens quicker. So why do you think Bahamians often treat honest conversations about national development like taboo or bad manners?
I think it's because
politics. That at the end of the day, it's going to be politics, because you don't want to step on the minister's toes. You don't want to step on the government's toes, because some people are going to say, well, my industry, I have to have a good relationship with said government because of these contracts or because of whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I feel in this country, politics is always going to be that issue, because even if you say something that's constructive, they take that as an insult of saying, oh, no, we're doing everything we can. It's like, I'm just trying to give advice. Like, they hire a bunch of consultants already. And it's like, I don't know if they listen or what it is, or it's their friends. Who knows?
If they have to do anything.
Yeah. So it's just like, politics is always going to be that it's just like what happened with the radio station thing. Like, if they say something you don't like, all of a sudden it's like they're reporting you to a government agency, and it's just like, oh, I don't like what they said about me, or they're going to sue you for defamation. And I think we treat our politicians like rock stars. How we should treat our athletes is like how the politicians are treated. They always got to remember, politicians are voted by us, work for us. They're supposed to be people who are in our community, where the athletes are the rock stars and they come. But it's vice versa here. Everyone puts those politicians on a pedestal to a point, and then they think they're invincible, unstoppable, and they're the most important thing, because a player comes, you got to shake the hand, you got to go to this office. Meanwhile, we could go through it. Some of the funding is lacking in a lot of the situations.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Some of the funding.
Well, I mean, there's two things there, right? One is that we put the politicians there. So my grandmother always say, you always get what you ask for, right? But
very true.
So it's how we change them, and that's for a different show, but how we could change that process by which the mindset of the people, the electorate, can change, force them to change who they put forward as candidates and so forth. But you mentioned about people getting afraid to step on somebody's toes. But why you have to go to them? When Tommy Smudge and a couple of us got together to sort of restart baseball, we didn't go to the government. We went to people, because we grew up in an era where you had Beck's Bear and Slits and all of those sponsoring big time. So the government hardly did anything for baseball.
But I agree, corporate Bahamas should have a bigger part. But I know politics has a play with that as well, just based on that. Like I said, I feel like people are just scared because of the political thing. But as you said, all those sponsors, I think that corporate Bahamas should step up some more, because there are times when you're asking for sponsorship and it'll be like, we give you $500. Like, what's $500 going to do? You're better off not taking anything than getting $500. Like, it comes to a point where you're begging too much and you're not getting enough. And I could tell you this in the basketball world, And this is the sad reality of what it is. So Bahamas basketball is trying to qualify for Olympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes 6 windows to do it. In those 6 windows, our NBA players might play in 4 games out of 12 games, right? In the summer. Everyone wants to jump on board and sponsor a ton of money in the summer.
When they playing.
When the big guys are playing.
Yeah.
But it needs to be a national thing where it's like, without these other guys, you don't get to see these players. So
so we're gonna design that system, right?
Yeah, but when you go and ask for money, it's just like, oh, I don't want to give money. I don't want to give money. So the teams, and this, I could guarantee this happens with most federations. You scrap and you struggle throughout the whole year, and then all of a sudden you had that one big shot, and it's like finally you get something, but that only pays off the debts that you had.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're back to zero. You're back in the negatives pretty much. So it's like, it's just, if corporate Bahamas would step up and make a mandate saying sports is just as important as throwing a party, because I can tell you one thing, they'll throw a party and that party will be huge and have a lot of funding to it. But if
corporate Bahamas spend money on things that they see that they can get a return on. And so maybe it's the way we approaching them on pitching and the systems that we design behind it, that they are reluctant to put their money in.
So that's another thing, and absolutely right. They have to see the value in it, and I think the reason a lot of it is so taboo is because, so we're a relatively young country. We're a very proud country, especially when we have athletes compete on a national level. Whenever they're draped in the flag, we're very proud. So I think when you connect something tangible to that, like when you talk money, when you talk things like that, it's almost seen as selfish to a point where people don't expect that to be a part of the conversation. It's almost as if the national pride should be at the top and then that should be enough. Now, I do think that's changing to a certain extent, but I still think that's the prevailing thought in this country. Whenever you hear things from athletes or coaches, or you have people requesting funding for certain things, I think a lot of people still think to a point where love of country should be enough. And that's just not the reality of what we live in. Not if we're seeing this as big business.
Yeah, but I mean, love of country is fine, but I mean, the plane got to fly from something. It ain't just fly by itself, right?
I agree. And just talking about basketball in particular, when you have at least 4 or 5 multi-millionaires on the team, love of country is not going to do enough. I mean, let's
you had
be real.
$400 million worth of contracts in Spain on the court at one time. So, like I said, they're not playing basketball for free. They're not playing for the love of the sport per se. They're playing for Bahamas basketball for free. They're playing for the love of the sport there for free. They're not getting paid by Bahamas basketball. That's what makes a difference. And like I said, return on investment, we could always go back and forth. But if a sponsor would say, hey, let's sponsor the jerseys, how much does it cost? Oh, that's too expensive. But you could imagine having a photo with Buddy wearing your logo without having to force it, make it natural. That's going to get all the shares. That's going to be viewed all over the TV. I mean, we had millions and millions of views just on basketball this last summer when we almost made the Olympics. So return on investment is going to be there. It's just that I feel just like government to a point, corporate Bahamas just doesn't step up enough for the athletes, especially the youth athletes. Like the youth athletes are the one who need it the most.
Well, we just getting to the point where we're starting to realize the power of the Bahamas, the brand name, the Bahamas. We know it in North America, but I think for the longest we didn't think it had any value elsewhere. And we saw it big time when we did the Bahamas Junkanoo Carnival thing. And everybody's saying, Carnival, we have Junkanoo. And they joined the two things together. But really and truly, Carnival by itself is one of the biggest brands that attracts everybody to it. And then you just piggyback and develop the product the way we want it to be authentically Bahamian. It don't have to be a duplicate of somebody else's. But, you talk about the mindset. The mindset tells us that, we want to be separate, but we don't put the weight in. Now, we have all these people, you talk about Albany, for example. They say 2% of the world's billionaires live there. So we should have access to encouraging them to invest in the Bahamas and so forth. So what are some of the real world costs, social, economic, cultural, that we pay when we avoid confronting mediocrity head on? And I call this mediocrity, that we have all this talent. I don't mean the basketball players or the athletes, excuse me, but you're talent. You all are talented, but nobody is maximizing y'all to the key. Commercially, economically, etc. Right? Charles Barkley signed a contract for how much?
A lot.
The amount of money they get.
Yeah. Stephen A. Smith has $100 million contract for being on TV. Like, he does a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. He's great at what he does.
No, fair enough.
There's a value.
But so do
there's
y'all.
a value to it. Yeah.
See, and that right there, that is sports as a big business. That's the total approach. It's not just the people that do it on the field, because you see how important the voices are that set the narrative, that respond to it, that drive content. Because if we're talking in the US, content is king. And the 24-hour news cycle has to be fed. So the people that feed that, they value that. That value is not the same. That value is not the same here. Like I don't think anybody knows that more than us, because we've been through the pitfalls of it from the very depths, just trying to start an independent entrepreneurship on your own. But that value is just not seen here. And I think all of that is, like I said in the beginning, all of that is because, the mindset of it being big business is just not there. One of the costs that we lose socially is, I think, we just don't grow. So we stay stagnant. So we still struggle. So take, for instance, you mentioned baseball, so I'm going to go there. And senior league baseball is struggling to find its footing and just finding its way back. But there isn't voices around it. There's not the kind of corporate support around it, like John was talking about, that would even have it into the minds of the people, that would make it present. So people don't know these things are happening. People don't see support about it. You know how Bahamians are. We need to see the success first for people to follow it. We're not just gonna jump on something from the ground up. But if we don't grow, if we don't try to force the growth, then socially we'll just stay in the same place for decades.
But socially, you talk about it. If we're not winning a gold medal, a silver medal, a bronze medal, if you come fourth in a final,
you're dead.
Yeah, Bahamians just don't care. And I could tell you with analytics with our post, if you win,
everyone,
it is going crazy. Yeah. If they lose, we are spoiled as a people.
Oh, totally.
For the athletes who put the work in, because at the end of the day, I don't put the work in. Ronaldo doesn't put the work in. You don't put the work in to get to that level. For them to get at a certain point, like when Charlton came sixth in the Olympics, it's like not a peep. Everyone's like, that's a big deal. Like for a country like us, we didn't win a medal that Olympics. It was the first time since 92. Everyone's like, oh, what a failure. And then you hear the politicians talk about, well, in my time, we had 2 gold medals. And it's like, but you didn't do anything.
I was going to say, ask them, did they run? Did they jump?
It's like you didn't do anything. And we will go and we'll say, when we started this 10 years ago, I feel like we changed the culture of how people treat sports to this day, because we were the only ones posting sports back in the day. We were the only ones like trying to get the trend going and telling people, hey, this is what's going on. High school stuff, people who are abroad. Then all of a sudden it got traction, and people only want to post stuff that's going to get traction. You're going to post some things that's just going to get 2 likes. Doesn't matter. You're still putting the information out there, but everyone just wants that hot clickbait, get the social media post going. And it's like, oh yeah, this is a big one. And if you don't win, you don't win. But we still need to take pride in our athletes and stop being so spoiled with the success that we had. Because like I said, as a country, we're spoiled with athletes. And
we suffer, what's the word I'm looking for? We suffer from inferiority complex, right? Where we feel that we have to be in the like in order to be known to be somebody or something. And so we do things like say all kind of stupidness and whatever you on YouTube, not YouTube, on TikTok and whatever you, just so people could want to watch and like. But then you get nothing out of it other than that flash of fame or whatever it is that you get.
Your 15 minutes of fame, and now it's 15 seconds of fame because social media is so instant because something new is coming out.
Right.
But
don't last.
One of the favorite things I have, and I feel it helps with just, the young kids, is when we do the basketball games and we post the kid who gets, like, when we treat them like that's our superstar, that's our high school kid doing it. That's one of my favorite things to do because you're putting the spotlight on someone who really wouldn't expect to have the spotlight.
Right.
And you're just showing, like, hey, we're going to treat our own like they're the superstars and they're the NBA players. And, I just feel like it makes it feel better. And instead of them.
So that's a part of the building, right? Because what you're talking about is trying to inspire the youth, right? When I was growing up, we used to go to the stadium. And I used to watch all the big boys, and they used to be in a nice uniform, all immaculately put together. And there was this pride thing that you couldn't let dirt get on your shoes, especially before the game started. And so we used to play the game of pepper behind the catcher's box in front of the fence, so all the fans could see, and only the best fielders could really get on the pepper line for the feature games and the night league games and so forth. And so we grew up watching that, and so we practiced that and learned that because we wanted to do the same thing. And so we had some inspiring us to do that. And so when we got out of junior league and stuff and could get up to play in the big stadium on the night and stuff, and some of us played senior league, then, you took that pride of that. So to me, that's part of the building blocks of putting the spotlight on people. And like my nephew, Denzel Knowles in Grand Bahamas, doing his 242 elite 242. I always get it backwards, I'm dyslexic. And D1 development basketball program, but they go away and beat up on a lot of people, and sometimes they get beat up on too. But there's very little traction. And some of the parents don't even want to sponsor the children to go to that when they might even get a scholarship out of it. So the mindset is a serious thing. And so that's part of what I think we need to start building on, to build this environment where we could create this eco system in sports, because I think sports is so powerful. It kept me out of jail. People would think I would not be an example of somebody who would do that, but I was only paying attention to two things in college, in high school: Bob Marley and baseball. If it wasn't that, nothing was happening, to the point where my mom sent me up in Canada and say, go catch your head in the cold hills of Quebec. And when you catch yourself, then you could go back to play baseball again. By then, I was done 2 years lost. But I think if we do things like this to build people and promote, and people follow people, so if we get people like yourselves who have a following and curtail the programs, then we could build and go to the corporate sponsors to get some funding.
So in terms of building people, it made me think of, so I remember there was a time back when I went to Jamaica on assignment, and we had to do a day in the life of Veronica Campbell and Usain Bolt. And speaking with members of the J3s at that point, right? Speaking to the late president, I think Howard Arce was his name. And, he was explaining to us how the way they approach it when they identify these athletes at a young age, and I'm talking about like grade school, like when they're winning races in 3rd and 4th grade, how the community identifies them, and people independently go through great lengths to make sure they don't fall through the cracks, to make sure they're properly fed, to make sure they have some place to practice and they have good people to train with. So it's not by happenstance. It's a systemic approach once they identify them then. And because that's culturally such a big part of who they are as a people. The same thing with baseball. I tell people all the time, the Bahamas had its first player in the majors the same year the Dominican Republic had their first player in the majors in 56. But what is the difference in the way the Bahamas went in baseball and the way the Dominican went in baseball? It's culturally what you put into it. It's culturally how important it is to people.
Yeah, I think part of our problem is we get distracted by too many good things where they could focus more on, because that's their channels, or more of a likely way of making it out of the levels of life that they're at, right? Kind of thing. Because I played with a lot of Dominicans, and even some are from down to Aruba, kind of thing. But you know, they always want to say, why you don't focus more on this than what you actually do, right? Because so you could be this, you could be that. And I'm like, man, when I finish school, I go on home to a decent job. But they didn't have that. So, you know, they fight harder.
Yep.
You know, and mentorship is a big thing, because, you know, by then, if I had a different mindset, if I had the mindset I have now, then I might have done something with it. I mean, even when the Yankees came tapping on my shoulder and tell me, come to their AAA, some single A, I was like, no, man, for me to sit for the next 5 years trying to build up to the system to get something, that dream, I don't need that. Let me go. But what I did benefit from was when I got hurt, sitting at the foot of Ron Frazier. And that's when I learned about the management and the business of baseball, right, from him. And so that's why I'm so eager to help people, whoever wants to try and build this program in the Bahamas and build beyond just this rut that we're in terms of just trying to put everybody in Hugh Campbell, who could see who could run the fastest up and down the court, and who could jump the highest to dunk on somebody, and that's basketball. Okay. You know, there's way more to it than all of that. I don't think we have enough people being exposed to it who are then plugged back into our system here to make an impact. So my question to you would be is, how do we invoke that? How do we use sports to help build that program back of developing people?
I think we got to eliminate the roadblocks, because to a person, the people that get that exposure, like you're talking about, and they would tell the stories of actually trying to implement things here and just not having that reciprocated, or not getting that kind of support, and just out of frustration, just either end up taking those ideas back to the US or just letting it fall by the wayside, because and I get their frustration, because you want to try and you want to bring those kind of developments here. There are people that may have ideas similar to ours, but just didn't have the kind of support for them to stick with it. And I've had many stories of people saying that kind of thing, but whether it's politically, like John was talking about, whether it's a lack of funding, whether it's difficulty in learning how to crowdsource or how to get that, because funding is everything, but people just don't feel the support once they get that exposure and kind of bring it here, because it's just not welcome, I don't think.
Yeah.
So go ahead. You go ahead.
Just going on with what Niall said, like, people try to do something like we did. They try to think they got to make money immediately. And you try to explain to people, it took years before we even saw a profit, before we even saw like a penny come into a point where it was like we were investing our own money, and we had a support system of family and friends that were just like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. And, you know, it sometimes it's not even financial stuff that you need. You just need the encouragement to be like, hey, you keep going. I see the vision. We've been lucky enough to have people like the guy who came up with our logo, Dia. He sat down with us. We had a whole meeting with him. And all of a sudden, when it came time to pay him, he's like, no, I see what you guys are doing. I believe in the product. Don't worry about it. Right. Keep on going. So it's like, sometimes you have those people that come in and you don't realize how much that actually helps you, because you just say, okay, I can keep doing it. I've had people come to me, how are you going to make money? And my question is, when the money starts being made, that's how we're going to make the money. But we got to keep doing what we're doing. Right. So
build
I always, exactly. I always feel once you have a support system and you have people who believe in you, then you got to keep going. And if people say, if one person likes your post, that's one more person than you thought that wouldn't have liked it. And you don't know where that's going to go eventually.
And to that point, I'm sure you mentioned your nephew has an organization where he's working with these young kids at the developmental level, because that's how you get the buddies. That's how you get the junk. Well, it starts there, but I'm sure he could tell you the stories of how difficult it is to even to keep that going. It's very difficult to get people to buy in, because if they don't see that immediate path, or if they don't have guaranteed return, and we know there's no guarantees in this, right? But if they can't see that, then a lot of people would just, you know, brush it to the side and just say, oh, well, I may just be looking for something for my child to do. I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money. Or some sponsors saying, well, what's the point of them going to this tournament? Like, what am I getting out of it by giving that kind of money? And after hearing that so many times, you know, a lot of people just end up stopping. Yeah.
No, I appreciate all of that, right? I've seen that, been exposed to it. From even when my mom was the one who was driving a lot of what was happening at the young ages of baseball, etc. You know, but you have to have the passion somewhere, right? And passion ignites passion. So I'm just figuring somehow we can get enough of us together who are going to be able to plan and design a system that we could pitch to somebody, and they'll be able to say, yeah, I mean, does it mean that we have to put sports in all of the schools? Do we have to make it mandatory that people play sport? But I look at sports, and what sports taught me as a whole, just by pure discipline, being able to work with people, the simplest thing as failing and know life doesn't stop because you failed. You know, baseball and the easiest sport in the world to play, and so just the mere fact that you stand up there and the man throwing 95 miles an hour and you ain't scared to run off and break off running as soon as you hear the ball coming at you, that's an accomplishment. A lot of people can't do that. Right?
But it just doesn't stop at the sports, I think. Like, to me, sports, it taught me how to be able to work with the team, how to win, how to lose. When you play individual sports, it helps you problem solve. But you always look at Jamaica, because we could look at Jamaica for a lot of things. Jamaica has a music industry. Jamaica's music industry is one of the biggest in the world. And they cultivate their own talent there. So it goes further than just saying, hey, we got to look at this as sports. You got to look at it in every aspect, because, like I said, if we had a vibrant music culture here, things would definitely be different. We know that.
1000% agree. Yeah.
I just don't know what it, sometimes I wonder, and we think this at sporting events all the time, I don't know what it would take for us to actually come out in droves and really, really support, because I'm trying to think off the top of my head, the last time I was really impressed by a Bahamian crowd.
Renaldo, let me ask you this question though. When you go to watch the game in the Heat Arena, you go at Miami to watch, well, now Yankee Stadium and so forth. What is there that you get out of the game? What are you going to the game for? You're going to watch certain athletes. You're going to get the experience. When they're not batting, or they're not swinging, or they're not dunking, or it's in between innings, something is keeping you occupied.
Absolutely.
That's a product. I believe our problem in the most part is that we don't build products, right? Our product is go watch the guys beat up on somebody, and after the game sit under the tree and see how much things we get down before they cool the empty. Right?
I get what you're saying with the product and everything, but what I feel is a big issue is Bahamians are only going to want to spend their money on what they want to spend. So let's just say we have the national team playing, right? Even because of baseball, you could put it at $5. I can go buy a beer for $5 and stay at the bar, and I'll be happier, you know? And so it's just like like we always say, national pride has to be a certain point with the athletes, but we also need the national pride to be at a certain point with the people, because there should be no reason why certain events go on where you're saying $10 is too much money to pay to go watch professionals play, to go watch some of your top junior players play. So I just feel a Bahamian will quick say, oh, we're going to go watch Jazz play in New York. I got to buy a plane ticket. That's $500. I got to get a hotel. That's $200. They'll spend $1,500 for one game to go watch Jazz. But then when you come here and say, hey, tickets are $10, oh, you lost me at that. So it's like I feel like there's a disconnect with, yes, I'm not trying to tell people how to spend their money, but at the same time, it's like $10 to go watch a game, $20 sometimes is not a problem. When Buddy Them came down here, they were selling tickets for $150 and people were buying it like hotcakes. But when it's not Buddy Them, $20 is too much money to spend.
And that's what I want to get at. I really want to know what is that thing that'll make us, what is going to be that driving force to have Bahamians come out and we can look at it and say, well, wow, they are really supporting this. This is our thing. Is it because we have so many things to pay attention to? Is it because we don't have that one thing that we define as ours and everyone is going to rally behind it? I don't really know what the answer is. I just know from seeing this time and time again, I always sit and I wonder what is it going to take? What more do we have to do? What more do the people have to do?
So to use the same line we were just talking about, right? So if you go into the stadium or if you go into Disney World and you want to go into one event in particular and you have a serious desire to get in the event, that line could be from here to Jamaica. You can stay on the line, right? But if the line is long and it's not something that you really want to watch or experience, you're not going to deal with that. A simple thing is restaurants. If the food is great, you will go drive half a mile across Nassau to get to the place to eat the food, even if everything else about the place isn't that good. But when the food isn't that good and it be right next door, you're going down the street. You know, even when it rains. So my question though is, people, like I said earlier, people follow people. So it's the same thing with the product, right? So if the product is what you're looking for, then you will be inspired to do something around that product and stick around that. For instance, if it's not, then what's going to keep the person's interest?
I get what you're saying with the product, but when you have a U15 team beat a Cuba, go to the championship, and they don't have support, it's like, what more can you ask for at that point in time? Because it was a U15 team. They've done everything they can to get to the championship. And you would expect at that point in time, you go out in droves and watch. Like, I've traveled to many countries, seen many teams play at all age levels. And every single country I've been to in the region supports their own, supports those teams. It is almost a sellout pretty much everywhere you go. In that, when we played Puerto Rico with Kai Jones, when people heard Kai Jones was playing, this is a Bahamian playing in Puerto Rico now. The stadium, the tickets weren't selling. Then all of a sudden they find out 3 hours later, the stadium sold out. 15,000 people just like that. But you can go and win a game. You put the product out. Yeah, you can see the highlights after. But that's the thing. People, what is the product? You have to go support the product to see the product. And if you have a team that makes the goal, there's no excuse after that. Like, you can't come to me and say, oh, I don't like how they're playing. They're in the gold medal game. They lost 1-0 in the gold medal game. You don't know that the extra 500 people in the stands may have put them over the top. Like, it's just crazy how that's the point of being at home. The point of being at home is to have the support, not to hear the other fans.
Right.
And I think we often hear all the stories about a different era when local sports was supported so heavily and supported so much. And I know there's a whole lot of factors that go into why it's not like that anymore. I mean, people have so many other things that they can do. I mean, I don't know. I sometimes I get really disappointed in our lack of support because we expect so much from the industry, and even that goes into the umbrella of it's just not seen as a big enough business because it's not, whether it's not generating enough revenue, not generating enough interest. There is just something that we are missing for us to get to that point.
But it goes outside of the sports world because we do video production for sports.
Yeah.
We've given prices to people, quotes, and their exact response is, this better be like a TNT production, which is a multi-million-dollar production with 140 people working.
It's like, close.
That's the expectations.
Yeah. And that's good because they can keep raising your bar. But I appreciate exactly what you're saying, right? Yeah, we got to go from step to step. You could only produce what you have the resources and capacity to produce. And that's the part of the excellence that I talk about. But what we seem to like to settle for in our country is that all we need to do is keep our nose above the waterline, and then we decide we're happy.
Yes.
Okay, so we get 6 runners going to the Pan Am Games and 2 jumpers and whatever and stuff like that. Oh, so somebody going, so we happy. It's like nobody's pushing to say, okay, but we could have had 14 each of them going. And if we keep building the system from year to year, it could be being 50 that you got to choose from. And maybe only 20 could go. I don't know what the dynamics is and everything, right?
You want to have such a big pool that it's difficult to make those decisions. That's the best thing that can happen. Like, you don't want to have a pool where you're picking 8 spots from 9 people, because then all of a sudden it's like, we don't got enough. But if you have 50 people to pick 8 spots, all of a sudden you're saying we have competition, it's competitive, and we should do well. So it's about increasing the pool, like you said, of how many athletes we're trying to get to qualify for these things. Because look at Jamaica. Jamaica has athletes switching over to other countries now before the money thing, because they said it's too difficult to get in this position in Jamaica. Let me go to Qatar. Let me go to one of these other European countries. Now it's a money thing because everything's going to come down to money. Yeah. But that's how deep the pool is in some of these countries. We have to get to that same level where our pool is just deep to be able to pick for these competitions. No longer is it we're happy to be there. It's like we're going to compete there and be one of the best in the world.
And maybe it's because we have been lacking at the developmental level, and that's where all of it stems from, right? Because to have this surplus that y'all are talking about, I think the same thing that you think. Whenever there's a story, I thought at draft night with VJ, I thought at draft night with Buddy and DeAndre, when it's so endearing to the public in the US when they hear these rags to riches stories. And then I just sit back and think, well, it shouldn't even be that way for them. Like, we should be better at this point. We had the number 1 draft pick in 1978. There's no way we should still be having these kind of rags to riches stories in 2025. You know what I mean? But we're lacking at the developmental level, and that's kind of trickling down to everything else.
Yeah. And I think it's volume too, right? Because if you don't have enough 10-year seniors out there doing what you're doing, then the momentum won't kick in, and then people won't get excited about what you're doing because they're not hearing enough of it. But you could get a talk show, Help Me Howard or whatever, and they be talking all kind of crap. Anybody could get up there and say what they want to say, and so they engaged because they could participate, whereas not everybody could jump out of the gym or throw a 95-mile ball, fastball, or this or that, or speak on the radio with clear voice. It might be scratchy like mine or whatever. So people looking for things that they could do, that they could relate to, and I think that's why they like Steph so much, right? Curry.
Yeah.
But not that they could shoot that far, but they think they could shoot because they're small enough, like them. But if we could find ways to duplicate, that's what Ray Kroc said, the man who caused McDonald's to become big, right? You could duplicate yourself in the programs, then you have momentum. And yeah, you need money for that, but I think it's the passion that.
But you have to have the drive for sure, because everyone who has made it as a professional athlete, regardless of if it's just a professional athlete in overseas, NBA, regardless of what it is, they have a different drive and they have a different mindset. That's why they got to the level that they got to. And that's,
you know what else they always had to do? They always had people behind them with the drive.
Yeah. I was just about to say that because, like, for me, my father wasn't in the house, but I had about 20 fathers from baseball who kept me from doing stupidness, or real stupidness. I still did some stupidness, but anyway. So, to me, for anybody to be successful, you have to have mentors and cheerleaders. And you talk about cheerleaders and helping you all, right? So, somewhat. But as long as we could promote people who are doing these things, and the more people see it, then maybe the more people who want to do it, who have the capacity to do it, who may not be doing it, right? And that's why I think of programs like yours, and that's why I told Tommy, get me the contacts because I like what y'all were doing. And I think the more you could be heard, not maybe just through your show, but through somebody else's show, then might reach more people. And that could probably help that in that scenario. And because I applaud y'all what y'all do, and one of the things I like about what I hear when y'all be talking about, y'all always be talking about something positive as to how to progress. Whereas a lot of places and a lot of people don't do that. They, oh, buddy, you only had 10 points last night. Yeah, but did you realize
I wish I had 10
playing
points last night. Like, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't even look at it to say, well, do you know that Buddy really has not played his position or his skill sets since they finished the 12-3 record? When Melton went out and they changed his whole role and asked him to do stuff that he's not naturally skilled to do.
We could do 2 hours on that crowd and how we have to fight against that kind of crowd almost every single day. And just as recently as Saturday on the radio show, when we had some guy text in saying he feels like Jonquil Jones should only be making $40,000. And I'm like, this is the mindset that we got to fight against. And that is right there in front of your face is one of the reasons why people struggle in their return home trying to do something, because this is someone saying $40,000 for one of the best women's basketball players in the world. That's crazy. But that may be a common mindset here. So, like, what do you do to change that?
Well, for one, it's women's sports, right? So it can be a common mindset here. But even $40,000 for a male sport, there's a lot of people who think that that's too much money because they don't make $40,000 on their job, so they feel that you shouldn't be making more than them.
It's crazy,
right? And that's a typical thing that we have in this land.
And like I said, it's black crab syndrome, because there's never once when a professional athlete signs a contract when I say, oh, that's too much money. You know what I say? Good for you. Mm-hmm. Get all the money you can get, because I want to see people succeed as individuals. They don't have to be Bahamian. You could just see them succeed. Like, you never hear me say to someone, oh, I don't want you to do this because you're going to. No, you want to see everyone succeed. You want to see everyone move up eventually and get to where they have to go. So for people to start saying you only should be paid this much, no, you should be paid what you're worth. But at the same time, don't ever be upset when someone's getting paid something, because there's a reason why they're getting that.
And that it finds a way to all tie back into what we started the show with. So if they're thinking that about these athletes at the highest tier, the absolute top of their sport, and they're thinking these people are overpaid, then how do you get them here to reconcile with that thought of I should be giving money or I should be supporting whatever's going on locally? I barely want to support what's at the top of the field. This is not the top of the field. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do we do that? How do we bridge that gap mentally in our people? It has to be one of the difficult things to do.
People only take action when the pain of taking action is less than the pain of them staying in their comfort zone. So in other words, if they either get excited, super excited, they can take action, or they're super painful, they will take action. So we prefer to deal with the excited part. So we have to find ways to excite people. That's why we go to the stadium. That's why we go walk and stand up in the sun and all that kind of stuff, just to watch Bolt run down in Carifta, right? I mean, a lot of time we won't do that. Well, we can do that. And I was just about to say, and I see a comment here. I forgot to mention to the folks that they are welcome to add their comments and so forth. So let's see what this one says here. Bahamian, vampire. Oh boy. Love the attitude, being happy for homies to be paid. Yes, very much so. Everybody want to be paid, right? And there's a lot of people doing the work to be paid, but there may not be everybody who's being recognized.
But I also feel that's the reason why we lose a lot of people here coming from the States, because a lot of people come here with the big dreams to do stuff at home. And when they come home, they get up all the qualifications and be like, you could only make 30,000.
Love of the game.
Yeah.
Exposure
Yeah.
dollars.
It's just like $30,000. And it's just like, why am I going to stay here for 30,000 where I could be in the States making 80,000, take taxes out? I'm still netting 50, 60,000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's another problem we have where it's like corporate Bahamas. Yeah, they don't give sponsorship money out like that. But also I feel they have a bad habit of saying, oh, we're going to pay you on this scale of the Bahamas scale. But then our groceries are some of the most expensive in the world. Healthcare is expensive. You know, you go to the dentist, you paying US prices. It's like everything isn't reflective to what you get paid here. Now, if food was cheap and medicine was cheap,
the cost of living was
was down, rent wasn't the price of New York living, then all of a sudden you can say, oh, okay, my salary corresponds to where I live. I could do this and that. But it's like, no, they're going broke living here, trying to live the dream. But then they have someone on top of them trying to keep them down. And then that forces a lot of the great young minds that we have in this country to leave.
We definitely have sports brain drain, 100%. Because I've spoken to so many people that just they become disenfranchised with the whole thing, and I don't know where that change has to take place, whether it has to happen at the top. People do not believe in the Ministry of Sports, number one. And I know so much of it you have to do independently. And I know so much work has to be done independently because, I mean, to me, that's the only true way to have some sort of freedom when you're not attached to the government. But there's a lot of people that do seek to lean on that for help and for guidance, and they just do not find it there. And so because of that, sports brain drain, major problem. We lose a lot of talent that way.
Well, I see the comment here, not really a sports person who want to follow Caribbean sports. Any recommendations? Before I get into that, I just want to say how crazy it is that, so as we know, Sports Max is shutting down August 8th, which was one of the biggest sports channels in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And it's something, and I feel like it's just not a Bahamas issue. It's a region issue where they don't respect the sports journalism or the sports, activity as much as they should. Like, we're losing probably the biggest voice. They own the rights to the Olympics, the NBA. They owned all those
economy
rights.
Of scales.
Yeah, to distribute. So it's just like, if that's how Digital is the company that owned it, probably makes multi-millions of dollars. Shuts it down because it's not worthwhile. That just goes to show how we look at sports in the region, and it just has to change in every aspect.
That's why we have to do it ourselves. We can't worry about other people doing stuff for us, right? And the like. And so when we have all of these things, the consortium, the simple thing is when we look at, they always talk about the Caribbean and the single economy market dollar kind of thing. That's the same thing our professional sports persons should be thinking also, possibly, that they could pool some of their dollars and invest it back in the Bahamas and so forth. When I came home and didn't go the sports route, I came home not just because I felt that baseball was going to be a harder road, but I had job offers that was going to pay me way more than what was being paid in the Bahamas. But I came home because there was a time when the government, through Celindos, was promoting people to build the Bahamas, and I felt I wanted to be a part of that. So, I feel the country I could say the country owed me plenty of money if I consider how much I would have made if I'd gone to the States compared to where I stay here, right? But that's just part of what happens. I'm not saying everybody's going to do that, right? And I don't even appreciate. I don't even would encourage everybody to do that, because you got to do what you know is right for you and your situation and what you could deal with. So how would you answer this question that Vampire?
Well, I would say if you don't follow us, you can follow us 10th year seniors on social media. We really cover Bahamian athletes. The site Track Alerts is it's on all the social media platforms. They are really track and field based. I know that there's Nate Sports Talk. If you follow him on Instagram, he is from Barbados. I think 878 Game Plan. It's a Trinidad Instagram account. But there's a lot of accounts, social media accounts throughout the region, that if you start following one, the algorithm's going to start pulling up some of these other Caribbean sites that you're going to see. And then you'll be able to see, like, because I follow people in Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, Dominican Republic. So, because even though we're in the Bahamas, I like to look at everything in total. Like, that's what me and now it's funny because have you seen this? He's like, no, I haven't seen it. Because I look at a lot of the technical stuff as well of what they're doing and how they're posting and just trying to get ideas, because sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Someone that's in the industry might be doing something, say, hey, I like how they did that. Let me see if I can emulate that. So once you start finding those Caribbean sports sites, then you can start following them. But like I said, Trinidad has them, Barbados has them, Jamaica has it. Turks and Caicos, I think, might have it as well. But they're out there. And once you start following one, you're going to start seeing the algorithm pop up.
So when I was growing up, we had people like Cook Smith and all Jessica Vella and all of those people who were on the radio. And because, you know, TV for us was really go outside and shout to one go by the TV if you had a TV and tell them, a little bit more to the right, a little bit more to the left, turn it. No, stop right there, stop right there, go back, you know, kind of thing. So it was more radio, but they told stories about athletes and so forth. And not just athletes, the news was like that. Other things was the programs beyond the news and sports. And so how do you mentor or inspire the next generation to be storytellers? Because even in baseball, we had people like Ivan Francis, you know, and even his brother. The two of them, they could talk till tomorrow, right? And tell stories on stories and stories. So how do we inspire people to know that this could be big business for them by themselves?
I'm glad you brought that up, because even before I decided to get into any of this, I was always a history fanatic, right? So documentaries and storytelling, those are things that always inspired me and always drew my attention. But as I was coming up, and even when I was in high school, it would be so difficult to find stories of great Bahamian athletes. And I feel like our documentation of what happens, I feel like that's lacking too, in terms of the way we do the storytelling. And it's to reach new generations and to reach, you obviously have to use social media now, but I mean, we can do more. We're limited in what we do because we're just one organization. We're just one company. I feel like it needs to be more of us out there. Mm-hmm. We're limited in our bandwidth that we can spread our wings, but there needs to be more done in telling the stories, not just of what's happening now, but I feel like there's so many stories of people in yesteryear that just haven't been properly ingrained in the culture. And right now we're going over a project where we're looking back into history with some Bahamian basketball players, and we're always finding new things out. And these aren't things that are ever present. These aren't things that the general public would know. And I always think to myself, well, I'm pretty well versed in sports and I've never heard of this. Why is it like that? Why? It's easily accessible. I could go on YouTube, or I could watch ESPN, HBO, and find out. I could watch 100 Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth documentaries. Not the same with any of our Bahamian athletes. So I think we need to do so much more storytelling just to get them as a part of our culture.
And that's the beauty with social media, internet now. It makes things more accessible to be able to do these type of things, to be able to go watch an old basketball game. Because like Nal said before, it used to be one basketball game on ZNS, Hugh Campbell, and that was it. Like, I'm privileged enough to be able to have hard drives. I have hard drives full of video and photos from when I started doing this. And I just hope that one day everything could be used for a reason, right? Because you're documenting. Anytime you go to an event, when I go to an event, I have my camera, I have my video camera, whatever it is, I'm documenting the event in some way. And you never know when that video will become something. Like we did Bahamas High School Basketball Nationals, and one of the kids who was in Nationals was VJ Edgecombe. Now go 6 years forward from when we got that video. That was one of our most viewed videos because no one else had him playing high school basketball in the Bahamas. Like, those are the type of things where we just have to be able to document. You want to be able to document everything you can. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh, no. we've seen it, we have it, and we know what it is. Like, that's the importance of document and then archiving it properly, because I don't know how the other companies archive. I heard the Tribune has a guy in a cave with a little magnifying glass that looks at the papers, but it needs to be accessible to a point. Whereas, hopefully, 50 years from now, when my day is done, right, I'm able to pass that on and be like, you can go make great things with this.
Yeah, but you're all trained, right? I'm not trained to do this. To me, you just jump and do it. This is what your passion is driving you to. I started the show because I felt that there was a niche or lack of the youth being exposed to what opportunities there exist in the Bahamas and what they can make of themselves, etc. I'm one who started pretty much or took the mantle of the digital era back in the mid 80s and moved that straight through whilst I was at Badelco. But there's a lot of things that we could be doing and we don't do it. But if we have more people just figure out that there's a need and they go and fill it, then they mightn't be as good as y'all and how y'all present yourself and stuff like that. You might be like me, a little scrappy fella with one little light in the background and something like that.
It all helps.
But you gotta start. Right? You gotta start somewhere. You gotta do something.
Oh, we definitely didn't start like this. I can tell you right now. We were at games with one camera. We did not have an entire setup. We literally, our first podcast, it was just us in the living room, just holding mics. It was nothing like this.
We didn't have light. No, we didn't have video. It's just a computer, a mixer, couple mics, and you just hope and pray.
But you know what? We decided we just had to go. We talked about it for weeks, maybe months. And, one day we was just like, it's time. We just got to do it like right now. The most difficult thing is to just start. So once we had the name and once we had the idea, it was, you just got to get out there and jump off that cliff, take the leap and just trust the work. That's the most important thing. You got to trust your ability to do the work.
Yeah. Key. So I got one more question there for you. What's the most understood truth about the role of sports in shaping who we be as people and as a nation?
I think it's underscored how important it is because you don't see how it affects every aspect of life. I think most people just look at it as you just play a sport and that's your entire identity. Oh, he plays basketball, or she runs, or he plays baseball. That's what you do, but that's not who you are. Like you mentioned how it shapes so much of your life. And the NCAA commercials are always some of the most potent ones when it comes to this to me, because they always give the numbers of how many athletes they have.
The enterprise commercials?
Yeah, no, the ones where, the ones where they say, and only 2% of that will go pro in the sport that they play.
Right.
But the skills that they build serve them in every aspect of life. How many times we talk about, one of our politicians that was an athlete and then that helped them to get to school, or not even them. Any business person, I wouldn't have been there without sports. To me, the reason I was always drawn to it so much is it's one of the great equalizers in society. You can come from absolutely nothing. You can come from nothing. You could take LeBron James, for instance. LeBron James raised in the projects in Akron, Ohio, and is now a billionaire at 41. And pretty much, you know what I mean? So there are only so many things that can do that outside of sports. And that's why I think it's so important. And I think we still don't grasp the importance of how it shapes an individual.
We also, I don't think, grab the importance of, yes, these are athletes, but they're also human beings.
Yep.
And we also have to remember that they are just like us. They have feelings. Everything that we have, they have as well. They just happen
they're not
to be
video games. They're not video game players. People believe that they're supposed to be perfect.
But that's what it is. They have feelings. Like, they're compassionate people. They know how it is. Especially one thing I could say with Bahamian athletes, they are really caring about the community, and they love their people. But it doesn't mean that they're a bank account. It doesn't mean those type of things. So I just feel once people realize, yes, they're an athlete, but like you said, LeBron James is an athlete, but you know what? He's a great businessman as well. Something that's outside. You just can't put them in one role. Like, yeah, they're a basketball player, but LeBron James is a businessman.
Right.
Buddy Hield is now an ambassador. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are things where it's like they're moving up in life because sports will stop one day for them. And when sports stops, it's the playing part. Then is what they do after, because they go into the real world like all of us. Sometimes it takes a long time for them to adjust to the world. So you have to be able to just know they're human just like us.
And another thing that I think is underscored about the importance of sports, we often give lip service to it, but I don't know how much tangible effort we put behind it, that so many of our societal ills, I think sports can do so much to mend that, because like you mentioned how it kept you out of any real trouble. Is so many, and it happens with young women too, but there's so many young men that are actually just looking for that guidance and looking for some place to put that energy, some place to put that kind of drive. But oftentimes there's nowhere to put it other than right in the community, and you will go to whatever the closest influence is. A lot of times that's a bad influence, but I'm sure all of us have heard stories of sports literally saving people's lives. And I feel like if we do more of that, rather than just saying it in a stump speech, where if we actually put something behind that, we can do so much more with the kind of problems that we see on the front pages every single day.
But it's not just saving lives. It's moments, because we see it, how the community gathers together when a Shawnee and Stevie are winning a gold medal. How the community gathers together when a basketball team is trying to make a historic run to the Olympics. Like, we see the positivity that sports brings out. Like you said, you enjoy what we do because we don't post negative stuff. We hate that. Like, that's not the point of promoting and being, hey, this athlete is so and so.
I just feel like it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's like it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But
it doesn't help the cause.
No, it doesn't help the cause. It doesn't help anyone. And then, like I said, they're still human. It's like you say something bad about them, they're gonna remember that as well. And unless they do something that's terrible to you personally, but they're playing a sport, they're playing a game that makes them a lot of money. But we just have to understand how great the Bahamas is when we're winning in sports. And that's where we go back to the politicians start saying they won gold medals in my term, that it means something that they won gold medals in their term. But we just gotta keep that feeling of saying, hey, if we had that feeling then for the Olympics, if we had that feeling then for this tournament, why can't we have that feeling for our track and field nationals, or as they have a BAISS with the School of Pride? There's so many things where we could just have that positivity come out with every single sport, because we just have we have probably the best athletes in the world that are just not developed properly to a point.
Yeah. So the point is, yeah, those climate change and heat waves might be affecting some people, but the bottom line is there's sports inside too, right? Esports, I mentioned it earlier. I don't know if you were on the show listening earlier, but that could be a multi-million-dollar industry for people.
And
so
Rick
we
Fox,
just need.
I know he invests heavily in that.
Huh?
Yep.
Rick Fox invests heavily in
Yes.
esports.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But you got to look at esports like World Series of Poker. That's the way that people make money, but it's televised. But I've seen documentaries on esports where they go to somewhere in Europe and they're in a sold out arena, just like it's a basketball game with the big screens and everything. And the winning team gets like $1 million, teams of 6. So yeah, avenues of sports. And that's why I said avenues with music, avenues with the esports. Everything could blend together to a point where you don't have to concentrate on just one thing to be successful. There's so many things out there that if you're good at it, you're going to make money.
Mm-hmm. So we haven't even touched on infrastructure and all that kind of stuff, which I know, I mean, we did touch on it because I talk about all the rocks we had to take off C.I. Gibson Field in order to play without getting.
They're still taking out rocks, though.
Yeah, but not like the ones we have to take off. But anyway, which is good. And I challenged a sports group that I joined when I a couple of years back, and I told them, they keep talking about the government this, the government that, before the stadium was built, the baseball stadium. And I said, well, why we can't build it ourselves? Why we need the government to build it, right? All we do is build a good business case, get some investors. You already have people who could do every aspect of the business. And just put your teams together and build a case, and people will want to support you.
But it's also, I feel we as Bahamians get to a point where we want everything so grand and so lavish. You say, why we don't build a baseball stadium? You know, you could build a baseball field, put a fence around it, and there's a field that you could do stuff.
Yeah.
You could build these courts, even outdoor, with a roof on it, so when it rains, people could still play.
Yep.
There are ways that we have to look at infrastructure in the country. It doesn't have to be a stadium. It could be they could build a track by SAC just to be like, oh, we're building a track. We know you have a good program, but you could build it privately too. But when we build something, it needs to be used, and it doesn't mean you could build a piece of it, especially these outdoor sports, and expand later.
Right.
So I feel with infrastructure in this country, we gotta stop looking to a point of saying, oh, we need to make sure we have a baseball stadium with 10,000 seats, right? It's great and all, but we saw how long that took to build. Whereas if they would have just built a regular field right next to it on the side, they could have started playing leagues. They put a fence around it and you go from there. A couple bleachers. No one at that point, you just have to have that infrastructure to develop the sport, to play the sport.
But we didn't need government to do that. We got to do that ourselves. Right?
Yeah. But it's just like with Pinewood Park. Like Pinewood Park just is there. It could be refurbished probably.
Yeah. But, I mean, Freedom Farm Park was the same way. They started out one way and just built it up themselves. So now I totally understand and appreciate what you're saying. I just think that there's certain aspects when people want to go and have the pride of being to say that they could play in the same space as the senior leaguers. Not necessarily they have to be a football stadium like what we built here. I mean, that was built that way because the idea was to try to attract foreign tourism kind of thing as a part of it, right? But there's grades of things in between that. But I mean, that's just this physical stadium or so. There's other infrastructure that we need, the training programs, the gyms, so people could do the academies and the likes and stuff.
But I don't know what the red tape is, but I know there's probably red tape. But if I'm not mistaken, I think some of the stuff, if you try to build something, still has to get approved by NSA.
Everything.
Like there's a red tape to it. So even though you're saying
there's always roadblocks,
we need to build this privately, government's still going to get in the way somewhere. Even if it's NSA, which is quasi-government, it could get in the way and hinder why people want to go. I mean, I could talk to you offline about something, and if I told you it, you would be like completely shocked that something like that would happen. I'm not going to say it on this, but we could meet up one day and I could tell you the story about something that was supposed to happen and it never did because of all the red tape. And this was a fully funded project, like 100% funded. And because of red tape, it didn't go through.
Yeah. Well, we can work on that. So, as we think this, what I would like to ask, I ask all my guests, is out of the things that we discussed and the things that we haven't discussed, what is there that you would like to leave our audience with so that they could be inspired to want to do something and not just think of when they see something the same way they thought about it the last time they saw it?
Tell stories of the athletes happening right now so future generations can know. If you're older, tell stories to younger people about what you saw and what you experienced when you were young, because I love hearing those kind of things, and I'm sure there are other people out there that would love to do it too. And support, so even if it's just as small as supporting athletes in your circle, in your family, let's start small, branch out from there just one bit, get a friend to come to something and have them get a friend to come to something, support, get the word out there, because like you said, people follow other people. So if we continue that kind of drive, if we continue to have that kind of focus just on these events and we make it a bigger part of our culture, then I think it forces people to pay attention. And where attention goes, dollars usually follow slowly after that.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to the point where people are telling you that it's not going to work. You have to be able to, before you do anything, you have to believe in what you're going to do. You have to believe in the product. Just don't be scared to do it. Yes, you might fail, but at the end of the day, it's just a learning lesson. And you don't know what's going to come from it. So like we said, we know there are a lot of people that start podcasts. There's a lot of people that start these sports things, and then you don't see it anymore because people want that instant gratification. Get the instant gratification. I'll tell you that right now. If you love it and you want to do it, you got to keep doing it until you get to a point where you force them to believe in what you're doing. That's the biggest key. You got to force the people to say, oh, no, these are the people who know what they're talking about. These are the people who actually get it done.
You know, the first instruction in the basic instructions before leaving that the good fellow upstairs gave the man was to work. And what I find is that you mentioned people like starting a podcast and want instant gratification, or whatever it is that they start, they want instant gratification. But what they forget in the process, or were never advised or encouraged to do, is to prepare. No athlete goes on the field without preparing to be able to perform at the level they want to do. So the same thing applies for the podcaster who wants to start a new podcast or casting or whatever it is. And that's what I was saying about sports. Sports teaches you so much about every aspect of life and the working world. And I feel that if we were to make it more mandatory that you had to do some level of sports during the high school years, during the primary school years, that our workforce would be so much more prepared to be able to produce at higher levels, right? I mean, that's just my thought process on it, because I know I played baseball with some people who they say would not pass PJC minus, right? But they are some of the best businessmen in the world that I know today, right? So it's just about finding your niche. You mightn't be the academic person or the like that it was there. I was not the most talented athletic person that is. I was 4'2" going in the grade 10 and 5'2" going in the grade 11, and by the time as I left grade 11, I was 5'8". Grew one inch in college. Scout tell me straight and plain, you need to get above 6 feet. And I said, okay. But then I walked on to University of Miami after they won the championship. So I called up the scout and asked him, I said, I still need to be 6 feet. But anyway, that was another story. But so the point though is that if you have a passion and you want it, find people who could help you achieve it and prepare yourself. So when the opportunity comes, you could be successful. That's the way I look at things. Do you share that, or you have a different view that you would like to give the audience?
No, absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. And then as I was looking, I just remember the Jazz jersey behind me, and that pretty much described his journey to a T. He had to be lucky to get there to break in during the COVID year, but when that opportunity came, he was ready for it. He performed, and now look at where he is, a mainstay in the Yankees lineup, right? So, yeah, everything you said to a T, that is pretty. His story is pretty indicative of that exact thing.
Wow. John, you good?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else I got to add to that. You guys said everything.
Well, I got to bring it all back because we got to dive into some other things that I don't even have here, and we already after the hour. I appreciate you all taking a couple of minutes more and showing up my background. I got to put some jerseys up there and stuff like that.
We can work on it. We can get it together.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you all. I hope everybody out there, you got some value out of what we heard from these two good young gentlemen here from 10th year seniors. I used to hear about that, and at first I thought it was a track. I thought it was just a track thing, and it was only for the seniors who were graduating from in grade 10 kind of thing, so forth. And then I started to learn, you know, my good friend Tommy Stubbs said, no, not that. Then, you know, and I said, Tommy, we're not going to be here all night talking because I know how you go. Once you get started, you don't want to stop, right? So forth. And then here it is now, that has to be at least, this is 25, that has to be at least 10, almost 10 years, not even that much, no. Maybe about 6 years since, I think. When I saw y'all first, it was a magazine, or y'all had some stuff in a magazine or something like that. I can't
maybe we've done so many different things. Like we've tried, like that's the thing. We tried so many different mediums and put stuff in newspaper, and because like I said, I didn't used to get paid giving them my photos, and it's just like try to get the name out there, try to let people know what's going on. So we've hit almost every avenue to see what works and what doesn't work. So you probably seen us in a whole bunch of publications and products.
That's the important thing about brand recognition. You may not remember where you saw it, but you seen it somewhere. Like you heard it somewhere.
Right. That's why I say the Bahamas. When people see the Bahamas, they say, "Oh yeah," they don't even know where the Bahamas is, but they won't go. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to get with our sports and other programs in the Bahamas. That we could say that when we put it out there, people want to come. Oh, these planes drive me crazy, right? Well, as I said before, thank you kindly for joining us, and we got to bring you back to talk about some things, and maybe I'll bring Tommy on as a snapshot, not the whole show, because he
sure, why not?
And we talk some boxing, because we didn't even get to touch about Obed and the rest of them, some of the names that I'd written down.
That's a story that needs to be told. That's the legit name that I was thinking of when I said we don't tell stories enough.
Yeah, I don't know if you all have the information, but I'm still looking for somebody who I want to interview who can speak to Obed's part, because I know my uncle was a big part of it, but he's gone on to the great above, so I can't bring him on. But yeah, so I'm thinking this: we have so many athletes, Bahama, Yama Bahama, and all these different people who did stuff that wasn't normal, but they might have been the ones in the limelight. We like to talk about those things, and we talk about the whole gamut on this show, but I know y'all focus more. Cool. So till next time, brothers, I appreciate y'all much. Keep me in touch and what's going on so that I could help promote what you're doing and what have you.
We'll do our best.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. So, folks, you've been watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and as we indicated this morning, I hope the show was of value to you. You benefited from it. You got something that will help you want to look at sports differently and see how it could be a tool for nation building and what we could do to support the athletes and the systems out there so that we could build that ecosystem to make it greater in the Bahamas. And at some point, we could reach that $100 billion economy that I'm pushing for. Because, you know, with the 5 pillars that we have in SumTin Ta Tink, digital and people, I don't see why we can't get there within the next 5 years. But, you know, you just got to believe. So till next time, when we have more, next week you really want to watch that show because we're going to dive deep into emancipation and some of the things that we need to do or know. You'll be able to find out from our guests on that show. So do enjoy. Peace out.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative, 242.